So now we've got the Salah news out of the way. Big news, obviously, about him leaving. There were other things that happened during last weekend's football that we're going to talk about. Of course, we're going to be introducing another competition. Yes, another one, but don't worry, this one will be over before you know it. We'll be reflecting on that. But like I mentioned in the last video, we're going to be speaking a lot about Liverpool in general. We're going to be speaking a lot about North London in general. But we're going to do our classic little run through of talking over the weekend's fixtures and looking through it all. So we started off with a Friday match going on in the Premier League and the Championship, actually. In the Championship, Preston North End beating Stoke City 3-1. Really good result for Preston. Surprise for Stoke City because they started off so well at the start of the season. They seem to have tailed off a little bit. And then in the Premier League, Bournemouth coming back against Manchester United for a 2-2 draw. Although, even with my Liverpool hats on, I still feel like Manchester United were screwed over by the referee. They were 2-0 up. They had the opportunity to score a third. There was a penalty shout. It was a very valid penalty shout, and the referee turned it down. And the comeback from Bournemouth. So, impressive comeback from Bournemouth. This has got nothing against them. This is all to do with the referees, and referees end up being a conversation for a lot of football chats. And then we moved on into Saturday because Manchester United getting a 2-2 draw, so only getting 1 point, opened up the door for teams to catch up in the Champions League. And on the whole, they didn't. Liverpool losing to Brighton and Hove Albion, and Chelsea losing 3-0 to Everton. Kind of crazy. We will definitely talk about Liverpool. I feel a bit more versed to talk about Liverpool. Can't talk as much about Chelsea, but Chelsea are in a bit of a mess as well on that basis. Fulham against Burnley. Burnley had the 1-0 lead and lost out in the end to Fulham. Manchester City, Crystal Palace being a match postponed. We'll talk about the reason why in literally about 20 seconds. And Brentford not being able to capitalise on Leeds United. Good on Leeds United. And Brentford again. Another one of those that's like chasing the Champions League positions. Didn't take full advantage of it. So it's all getting very interesting on that. But again, more on that later when we talk about the table. When it came to the Championship, though, Middlesbrough, the team that is challenging for the Championship, not beating Blackburn Rovers, who are threatened with relegation. Derby County beating Birmingham City. Ipswich Town drawing against Millwall. That was a very fascinating match between the two of them. Bristol, West Bromwich Albion. West Brom getting another win. Coming out of the mire of the Championship right now. Norwich City, the team in form in the Championship, beating Charlton Athletic. Hull City beating Sheffield Wednesday. Everybody beat Sheffield Wednesday this season. QPR beating Portsmouth. Wrexham beating Sheffield United. Southampton beating Oxford. Again, those teams in form. Watford and Leicester City, a 0-0 draw. Coventry City beating Swansea City 3-0. That is a game that felt huge. But I said that Manchester City Crystal Palace was postponed. That's the reason for that is Manchester City were playing another match, a small little match, playing against on the Sunday, and that was the League Cup final, the first trophy that was battled out between the top two teams in England in Arsenal and Manchester City, and surprisingly, Manchester City won. I'll talk a little bit more about Arsenal's impact and different things like that a little bit later. But yeah, that was a little bit disappointing. I don't think there was any Championship matches. No, there were not. But in terms of the Premier League, Sunderland, a comeback against Newcastle United 2-1. And I think this is impressive because like in the last 10 years, I know Sunderland have been out of the Premier League for a while, but Sunderland have basically never lost against Newcastle in the Premier League, which is astounding. I had a feeling at the start of the season, it's probably the only prediction that's gone well for me, which is that Sunderland would do well. And I've been proven true on that, and I am proud of being proven true on that. Aston Villa beating West Ham United. They were the one team chasing the Champions League spots that really did get a win, and it was really good on them. And then Tottenham Hotspur, Nottingham Forest. The fans came out and Tottenham Hotspur are in a real mess, aren't they? Then we came to Monday. No, we did not, because nothing happened on Monday. And nothing happened on Tuesday, nothing happened on Wednesday apart from the Women's League. I don't think there was any championship matches or anything like that. No, nothing really major to speak of. We will talk about today and tomorrow's matches in a bit. But in terms of the table, and this is how things line up. So obviously Arsenal and Manchester City both played in the League Cup, so it doesn't have any. Arsenal losing didn't have any impact on the league. That was just going to be how it was. But you can see where we're going here. Manchester United, Aston Villa got a 5-6 point advantage over everybody else. They seem to have a little bit of control over third and fourth. There is still 7 matches to go, but very much looks like it's in their control. And Liverpool and Chelsea, their stalling has meant that, in a sense, our predictions come true. Brentford and Everton, only 3 points behind. I think Liverpool playing Everton very soon as well. Fulham, Brighton, Sunderland, Newcastle, Bournemouth. They're all still within a chance. 7 points when you're talking about covering about 9 teams. That is not a lot of points that there could end up being still a battle for European places. A lot on the line still. And then looking down, poor little Crystal Palace. Every team above them is competing for Europe. Every team below them has got something exciting going on. And Crystal Palace are just like, if they win their match against their match in hand, they do join that, but they really do need to win to get something exciting to go on, because otherwise, a little bit pathetic. But the big thing, apart from the fact that it's still 3 points between Wolverhampton Wanderers and Burnley, because of Burnley playing their game in hand has not really helped them. West Ham and Tottenham Hotspur are so close together. Like, the Aston Villa result was obviously good for Aston Villa, but if that had been a draw, Tottenham Hotspur could have been in the bottom 3. That is how close things are getting. And it's kind of difficult to know where to start, really. I suppose probably Tottenham is the one to really talk about first, because that seems to be the big drama. One of the wealthiest clubs in the world. I think they're like in the top 10, top 15 wealthiest clubs in the world. Impressive stadium. So much money. And they are in this danger. And I really did think Igor Tudor was the guy, right? I really did, right? I don't know why I did. I must have had an overload of cheese or something when saying Igor Tudor was a good fit. But something's not right. And it's getting desperate. There's some rumours. I'm sort of passing them off as comical that the Spurs board might even consider current players as managers, which I know Everton, I think, did with Leighton Baines and was it Seamus Coleman, I think it was. But it's a risky strategy, especially when you're 1 point ahead. If you're like 5 or 6 points ahead, maybe you could get away with it, but not so great. I suppose, what do you put it down to? Or actually, I suppose the better way of saying it is, how much of the blame goes to what? How much of it goes down to the players? How much of it goes down to the manager? How much of it goes down to the structure behind the manager? And I've got to be honest, the way things are being spoken about, it almost feels like the structure behind the manager, the club, that feels like the biggest problem. Like, it's okay making risky decisions when you're fifth or sixth, and you can go for a hipster's choice. Brighton do it all the time. In ninth and 10th, they'll go for a hipster's choice, whether that be Graham Potter, although Graham Potter's gotten promoted, but whether it be De Zerbi, whether that be Hertzler, right? Where they're in a situation where they can go for it because they've got a bit of a buffer. Tottenham never had that buffer. And then went for Igor Tudor, who is someone who has done well across the European leagues, which is the reason why I thought he'd be good, but not in the Premier League. And I think this is the thing, isn't it? It's probably a situation of disbelief. But then again, maybe not. I was actually watching a podcast of of JLA's channel. That's James Horizontal, not the band, where he did a podcast with some Spurs supporters, and some of them basically said that as soon as the new stadium was built, that huge, impressive stadium was built, that was when the downfall started. You're probably like, well, they expanded. Why is that such a big problem? And actually, when you think about it, it probably does have an impact. The money, the prestige, the intimidation. Is it actually intimidating for the opposition, or is it intimidating for the team that's meant to be calling it home? And look, it's an expensive stadium. Such an expensive stadium. So that has an impact. In fact, I seem to remember, was it like a Monday Night Football? Jamie Carragher basically called that out and basically said this stadium's going to hurt Tottenham Hotspur. And it's hard to argue against it. I mean, yeah, I know they won the European trophy last year, but the players do not look like they feel at home. And they could have learned from this. They could have learned from other teams. When I think of other teams that have moved into a new stadium, the only one where there hasn't been a downfall would probably be Manchester City. You've got Arsenal in the early 2000s. New stadium was built. They were at Highbury. They moved to, oh my God, I've forgotten it already. The Emirates. They moved to the Emirates, a bigger stadium. That sort of first, sort of circular stadium you probably started seeing. And the debts meant it had an impact on the team. A team that was challenging for Premier Leagues all of a sudden was struggling to get into top four and then struggling to get into European places full stop. And it was a fight for Arsene Wenger, who I think did a much better job, a much bigger job after the Premier League titles that he won, just keeping them competitive with the money they were spending. Or you think of another famous example, West Ham United. A team hugely competitive, competing across Europe, or being that sort of, in the most positive terms I can say, the annoying team that just would never give up when they were at the Berlin ground, when they were at, can't remember what it was called. Upton Park, that's it, right? Moved to the Olympic Stadium, soul's gone. Completely gone. Or the other big example, a team that's going to be in the Premier League, most likely going to be in the Premier League next season, in Coventry City. They were at Highfield Road, is it? I think it is, in Coventry, right? Old school stadium. Competing well in the Premier League. They get relegated and the owners get a new stadium built. to galvanise the team. They've seen Manchester City do it. They'll give it a go themselves. What happens? They lose the stadium. Coventry ended up playing in Northampton, which, if you don't know the geography of that, ridiculous. About an hour away. Fans are having to travel an hour to get to their home matches. It was a mess. And if they're not careful, Tottenham Hotspur could be in that situation. They're clearly in a situation where they're struggling financially because they are spending, less money on younger players and hoping for the potential. It's clearly a colder place because ultimately if you were to look at it in simple terms as an owner, you think, oh, more seats, more fans, fantastic. But it's not as simple as more fans. That more fans doesn't necessarily mean more noise. You need to make sure you keep your loud fans. And you cannot guarantee that the extra fans you're going to bring in are going to be as loud as your core that have had those season tickets for a while and have been sitting in the same place for a while. Because you can't guarantee they're going to be sitting around the same friends that they've been spending 10, 20 years, maybe even longer, joking around with, singing with. It's not going to be exactly the same. And then you factor in that the extra seats are probably going to people who want to enjoy the atmosphere and the experience, which is the wrong thing to be doing. If you are to go to a match, you are to be part of the experience. That is your job. I'm going to be going to a Liverpool charity game at the weekend. I'm not going to be recording anything. I'm going to be bloody singing, chanting, joining in with the atmosphere, providing that raucous atmosphere as if I was one of the locals, right? They've messed up. And let's face it, if they spend more than one season in the Championship, they could do a Coventry. They could lose their stadium. And by the way, the stadium was on the same place as White Hart Lane. They don't have White Hart Lane anymore either. I have no idea where they're going to go. Wimbledon? Your guess is as good as mine. Actually, that's a good thought. Comment down below. If Tottenham Hotspur was to lose the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, where would they go? Who would house them? And like I say, it's not daft to think about that because Coventry City were in that situation. They had to go to Northampton first and they had to go to Birmingham City before they finally could go to their own ground. It was a whole mess. Whole mess. This is sketchy times for Tottenham right now. And look, there are potential chatters of the charges of Manchester City, and that might save Tottenham, but they need to have this in their own hands, not based on outside situations going on. A whole mess. Anyways, that's Tottenham. Let's now go across the border to the other side of North London, the Arsenal-Manchester City game. Now, the only news story I was able to find in the time when I was doing the research was the one of the Man City side of things. But let's focus on it. I want to first do a little bit of like a deep dive into the match itself, or the feeling of the match more than anything else, and then I want to sort of like talk about how Arsenal fans and the players should be feeling. Let's start off with the match, right? And I don't want to dig into Kepa too much about the fact that he shouldn't have even played or anything like that. At the end of the day, yes, I know he's lost 2 finals, potentially 3, and he hasn't had great experiences at any of them, but, neither did Klopp for about 3 or 4 finals before he finally got a win, right? That's fine. That happens. But I do remember the second that I thought, oh, Arsenal are not going to win this. And it wasn't the first goal. It wasn't the mistake from Kepa that caused Nico Roy to score his first goal. It wasn't the instant 5 minutes beforehand. The one where he wiped out, was it Doku or Semenyo, and probably should have been sent off? No, it was actually 5 minutes before then. It's when Kepa had the ball in his possession and did nothing with it. I joked around with my dad when we were watching it together going, is this a photo? Man City players weren't doing anything. Kepa wasn't doing anything. They were just standing still. And it was like... It was like a stalemate. Like, this is the thing, right? This headline talks about Man City pile pressure on desolate Arsenal. In that match, Arsenal had the chance to put pressure on Manchester City as a team, and they didn't. And it was down to Kepa. And I remember looking at that and going, if I'm a Man City fan, if I'm a Man City player, I'm going to be like, they seem scared. Now, it could have been the double bluff of the century, but guess what? It wasn't. All the momentum was with Manchester City. There was no momentum coming from Arsenal. So even the slightest little bit of movement from Manchester City, and it felt like they were in control. That's the match. That's the situation. That's the difference between David Raya and Kepa. It's got nothing to do with shot stopping ability or distribution or commanding the area. It's to do with the passing of play. Raya would quickly get rid of it. Quickly get rid of it to a player, whether beating it long or whether rolling it to the nearest player, to really go, do you know what? Let's go for it. Let's go for it. Let's attack. Kepa felt more like a, oof, I hope we don't concede. And that's what gave Manchester City that impetus to win the match. But how about for Arsenal fans? How about that? Well, I remember seeing comments after the match from Arsenal fans going, oh, well, right, time to focus on the treble. And that's commendable to be focusing on the treble. But speaking from experience as someone who has been there twice, potentially 3 times, but definitely twice, just be careful that your focus on multiple trophies doesn't make you disappointed with one. Like, this season for Arsenal feels like a mirror image of the season for Liverpool last year. Liverpool were in a League Cup final. They weren't in the FA Cup. I think that was when they started focusing on the treble rather than the quadruple, right? But in a sense, Arsenal have just gone in this thing of, oh, we can't do the quadruple. Guess we'll focus on the treble then. And by the way, the quadruple has never been done in the Premier League. I know that Pep Guardiola with Barcelona has done I think is it the sextuple? They've done 6 trophies. But no one's done the quadruple in the Premier League. And you think of the coaches that have been in terms of Alex Ferguson, Arsene Wenger, Jose Mourinho, Rafa Benitez, Kenny Dalglish from the Blackburn days. Who else can we throw in there? Jurgen Klopp, Pep Guardiola. There's a few others I'm probably forgetting about. Probably can't include Hiddink in that or anything like that. But good managers, great managers, fantastic managers, and none of them have done the quadruple. 2 of them have done the treble. In Pep and Alex Ferguson, right? There is a chance. This is the thing. For Arsenal, there is a good chance that they'll win the Premier League. There's a decent chance they'll win the FA Cup. They've got a good chance of winning the Champions League. But to win all three? Oof. Now that's a task. That's an undertaking. That's challenging. Make sure you enjoy your Premier League win if and when you do it, because it is special. And you don't want to be in the situation that missing out on a treble or a double means that you end up miserable or just satisfied with a Premier League win. Take it from me. But anyway, speaking of the disappointments of last season and Liverpool, I guess we'll have to talk about the disappointments of this season and Liverpool. Now, obviously, it's a Brighton match we're talking about, and the Mohamed Salah news came through, but I think this was the weekend I gave up on defending Arne Slot. Gave up. Why do I say that? I mean, why have I been defending him for so long? I think, let's be honest, he did have that prestige of winning the Premier League, and he put the tactics in play. I had never been so bored, so miserable watching Liverpool's performance against Brighton. That was when it was 1-1. We weren't even losing then, right? It was when it was 1-1. It felt cold. And whilst you can make arguments where the players playing for Slot, was it down to the players, there was one situation where I looked at it and went, Slot doesn't know what he's doing. It was a time when Rio Ngamoa came on in place of Jeremy Frimpong. Left winger for right back. What does that mean? Szoboszlai, our best attacker, was back at right back. Again. Now here's the thing. Dominic Szoboszlai performed well at right back against Newcastle and performed well at right back in another match. Can't remember which one. But he has been our greatest attacking threat. And you are stifling him for what? You convinced that Gakpo is the solution? Because I'm not. It feels messy. In fact, I'm going to say it outright, and this is the thing that makes me think this is not right. It doesn't feel like a meritocracy anymore. The players that have been performing well are the ones that aren't playing from the start, or the ones that aren't coming off, are being substituted first. Rio Ngamoa has been better than Cody Gakpo this season. Who's been playing more? Cody Gakpo. I know Rio Ngamoa is young, but still show that he has performed well enough to be playing and starting in the Premier League. Szoboszlai has been your greatest attacker. Put him in bloody attack. I'm not happy with what I'm seeing. And this is not somebody who's like going, oh, it's not like Klopp played. This has never been the way that Liverpool play. Never. Even a Rafa Benitez, still an attacking threat, still fun to watch, Torres and Gerrard play off each other and perform well, and Xabi Alonso in the midfield. It's not like the Brendan Rodgers years, all the pass and move, but because we still had Coutinho and we still had Sturridge, and bloody hell, we had Suarez. Dare I say it, this feels Roy Hodgson era, when no one really knows what each other's doing, and everything's a bit of a mess, and everyone's bumping into each other, and everyone's getting in each other's way, and no one knows what to do. Like, what? This is messy. Ridiculous. And yeah, Salah hasn't been playing well. But I can't make the argument of saying you need to be benching or repositioning Salah because bloody Cody Gakpo's still on there, on the pitch. And he's been doing awfully. What, 3, 4 goals maybe? Barely anything. It's crazy. It is absolutely crazy. So, yeah. Liverpool needs a lease of life. And you know what I was saying earlier about, Tottenham couldn't afford to take a risk on Igor Tudor because they didn't have a buffer. There is a guarantee. I almost feel like it's guaranteed we're not going to get Champions League football under Arne Slot. Take that risk. I mean, there's chatter about Steven Gerrard, and thinking about it, that feels perfect as an interim. Someone who has won Champions League, someone who has won FA Cups, knows what it's like, knows how it is to push and press and do you know what's funny? As I saw a piece that basically had it where Gerrard would be interim, Xabi Alonso would take over in the summer with Gerrard as assistant, Thiago Alcantara would come as assistant, and then maybe Klopp as a technical advisor. Now, I don't know how possible that is, but even looking past the emotions of it, feels like a better fit. Much better fit. But yeah, it's not great. It's not great. And honestly, it's not. He's out of ideas. He is completely out of ideas. And out of credit as well. I want Arne Slot to leave with his head held high. I don't think it's possible. Maybe we can celebrate in a few years' time, but right now, if he's to leave, we won't think of him as a Premier League winner. We'll think of him as a failure, and that sounds crazy. Feels spoiled, to be quite honest. Like we want more, but this is not the Liverpool way. There's no energy, there's no passion, there's nothing, and it's weird. And we'll see what happens, but maybe I'll be in a better position. Anyways, more of a lighter note, right? Because I mentioned that there's another competition going on. They are going on right now as we speak, as a time of recording on the 26th of March. And we have ourselves World Cup qualifying. This is the playoffs. This is the final chances to get into the World Cup. Now, for some of the smaller teams, the smaller countries, this could be their only route into it. And it's like the thing that will be It'll be the excitement, basically. And this is semi-finals time, right? Winner stays on to get through to the finals, where there'll be about 7 or 8 finals, and those teams will end up in the World Cup. Some of them maybe for the first time ever. We got Turkey that are already through. They've beaten Romania. Turkey, much bigger team than Romania, so it's more of a case of Turkey are hoping that they get saved by the World Cup qualifying, the playoffs. Republic of Ireland, a team that has been in the World Cup a couple of times, but not often. So certainly are like looking forward to it, and they at halftime are beating the Czech Republic. Again, the Czech Republic being the bigger team. Republic of Ireland have the opportunity to get through to the finals of the playoffs if they just not concede any more goals. Denmark, North Macedonia. In terms of bigger teams, certainly Denmark is. North Macedonia, smaller country, smaller team. They are, battling it out, as are Italy and Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland is a free hit for them. Italy, it would be a disaster if they don't win this and don't end up in the World Cup. Poland, Albania, both of them decent teams. I'd say Poland the slightly bigger team, given the fact they got to the player. What's his name? Lewandowski, one of the best strikers in the world. But Albania are currently leading at half time. Slovakia against Kosovo. Kosovo very recently set up and joined, so they're probably looking at this as like this is their chance of really doing it. So they are 2-1 down. Maybe there'll be a comeback, but Slovakia looks like the team that's going through. Ukraine versus Sweden. Sweden, who underperformed massively during World Cup qualifying. Not playing in Ukraine, but Sweden currently 1-0 winners at the moment, but that's at half time. Wales versus Bosnia and Herzegovina. Similar size teams, but Bosnia have been in the World Cup, I think, more recently. Wales were in the last one. But yeah, interesting matchup between the two of them. I don't know if there's any more that are going on. No, because we then are into friendlies that are going on, which no one really worries about that too much. I don't know if there's any other matches. Let me just double check. I feel like there is. Oh yeah, because that's only European ones. So we got intercontinental ones as well. Were there any that happened elsewhere? No. So yeah, we got also in terms of World Cup qualifying intercontinental. So Bolivia are playing Suriname. Both of them tiny countries. Both of them want that chance. So that'll be a case of very happy winners either way. I'm pretty sure there's others going on. Oh yeah, Jamaica versus New Caledonia. Jamaica's certainly the bigger team out of the two. Hoping for a victory. That's at 3 a.m. So yeah, you want to be up early if you want to be watching that. There are other matches, of course, going on. Are there any other World Cup continentals? I don't think there are. And I think is it next week that's the... next week is the finals of those. So you can see Turkey are already through. We'll be able to find out who's playing who for the finals. These will be the matches on Tuesday to decide who's going to be in the World Cup, joining the rest of them. Which is going to be incredible. And like I say, the same counts for the Intercontinental. Congo Democratic Republic are currently through, which is good for them, really good for them. And I think maybe it'll be like, and Iraq are also through. So they will be awaiting the winners of the Intercontinental ones to be seeing if they go through. There is a lot going on, even though there's no Premier League football, there's no domestic football going on, because the international tournaments are there. If your country is playing, best of luck to them, and until next time, take care.